to all. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraet Nashtaprayesu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dear devotees, we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 3, Gajendra's Prayers of Surrender, from text 1 through 11. Text 1. Sri Sukadev Goswami continued. Thereafter, the king of elephants, Gajendra, fixed his mind in his heart with perfect intelligence and chanted a mantra which he had learned in his previous birth as Indradumna, and which he remembered by the grace of Krishna. Text 2. The king of the elephants, Gajendra, said, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Person, Vasudev. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Because of him, this material body acts due to the presence of spirit, and he is therefore the root cause of everyone. He is worshipable for such exalted persons as Brahma and Shiva, and he has entered the heart of every living being. Let me meditate upon him. Text 3. The Supreme Godhead is the supreme platform on which everything rests, the ingredient by which everything has been produced, and the person who has been created and is the only cause of this cosmic manifestation. Nonetheless, he is different from the cause and the result. I surrender unto him the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is self sufficient in everything. Text 4. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding his own energy, keeps this cosmic manifestation visible and again sometimes renders it invisible. He is both the supreme cause and the supreme result, the observer and the witness in all circumstances. Thus he is transcendental to everything. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead give me protection. Text 5. In due course of time, when all the causative and effective manifestations of the universe, including the planets and their directors and maintainers, are annihilated, there is a situation of dense darkness. Above this darkness, therefore, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I take shelter of his lotus feet. Text 6. An artist on stage, being covered by attractive dresses and dancing with different movements, is not understood by his audience. Similarly, the activities and the features of the supreme artist cannot be understood even by the demigods or great sages, and certainly not by those who are unintelligent like animals. Neither the demigods and sages nor the unintelligent can understand the features of the Lord, nor can they express in words his actual position. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead give me protection. Text 7. Renunciants and great sages who see all things being equally, who are friendly to everyone, and who flawlessly practice in the forest the vows of brahmacharya, vanaprastha, and sannyasa, desire to see the all auspicious lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. May that same Supreme Personality of Godhead be my destination. Text 8 to 9. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no material birth, activities, name, form, qualities, or faults. To fulfill the purpose for which this material world is created and destroyed, he comes in the form of a human being, like Lord Rama or Lord Krishna, by his original internal potency. He has immense potency, and in various forms, all free from material contamination. He acts wonderfully. He is therefore the Supreme Brahman. I offer my respects to him. Text 10. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the self effulgent Supersoul, who is the witness in everyone's heart, who enlightens the individual soul, and who cannot be reached by exercise of the mind, words, or consciousness. Text 11. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is realized by pure devotees who act in the transcendental existence of Bhakti Yoga. He is the bestower of uncontaminated happiness and is the master of the transcendental world. Therefore, I offer my respect unto him. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Grateful for reading today. Thank you, dear devotees, for joining in this most auspicious day of Vijayadhara Ekadashi. With the pleasure of all assembled Vaishnavas and for my own purification, we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 3, Text 1 to 11. Start by offering my prayers. Om Akyantimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Karoti vachalam panghum langayate kirim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurudeem Taranam. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So, just to give a brief overview of what's been discussed so far in this eighth canto, Sri Parikshit Maharaj inquires of Sukadev Goswami to learn about the different incarnations of the Lord and the different Manus appearing in the different Manvantaras. And as Sukadev Goswami is describing, he begins to narrate the story of Gajendra Maharaj, the elephant king who once when he was out with his family, in a very jovial environment, how he gets entrapped and bitten by a crocodile, and he's struggling in that particular situation. And in the last couple sessions, we saw the battle that happens between the crocodile and the elephant. And now, finally, at the end of chapter 2, the elephant Gajendra, he realizes that he is going to lose the battle and he has no hope left in his own strength or in his family. So, with this understanding, this realization, he turns towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead in prayer, and that is where this third chapter begins today. Now, I just want to before we introduce this, just want to speak a little bit about prayer, because we understand that this particular prayer, I'm sure most devotees are familiar with it because they're very, very important and powerful prayers, just like a lot of other prayers that come in Srimad Bhagavatam. The question is, what is the importance of these prayers? And how do we pray? So in one lecture, His Holiness Radhanath Swami had explained the four elements of prayer. So the four elements that we normally focus on or normally include in our prayers should be: first is glorification, second is gratitude, third is a gift, and fourth is grace or forgiveness. So it's just like 4G network. We hear about 4G and 5G network. This is the 4G network of prayer through which we can access the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it is present in everywhere in any situation. Just like we see Sri Gajendra Maharaj, who is in this most troublesome time. He's facing, standing in the face of death. His crocodile has bitten his leg, and all his strength has gone away. And even in this particular predicament, Gajendra is able to pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and becomes the benefactor of His mercy. So the four elements that we talked about, the first is glorification. So and that's what we'll see today, is when Gajendra Maharaj starts offering his prayers, he starts glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is a common theme if you follow the different prayers in Srimad Bhagavatam, the prayers by Queen Kunti, uh, prayers by Kulashekar Maharaj. They all begin by glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the object of their prayer. Um, the second part of the prayer is gratitude. So when you pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in addition to glorifying Him, you express your gratitude to Him for everything that He's done. The third thing, which in material world is most important part of prayer, is asking for something, asking for a gift. But when we understand Srimad Bhagavatam, when we read these prayers of these great Mahajans, these wonderful personalities, we realize what is to be asked. We don't ask for anything material. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavita va jagadisha kamaye. What do we ask for? Mama janmani janmanishware, bhavatad bhaktir ahetukitve. We ask that birth after birth, we always remember and chant the glories of the holy name and serve the Lord and His devotees. So this is what we ask as gift. And the fourth part is grace. We ask for forgiveness because we understand that even though we're offering all these wonderful prayers, we're not qualified even ask Lord for something. But still we ask Him that out of His mercy, may He forgive us, may He overlook our mistakes, our shortcomings when we try to glorify Him and accept us as we are. And the Lord says that if we do give up all varieties of religion, He will undoubtedly, without, and we should have full faith in it, He will accept us and deliver us from this material world. So in this particular way, we should pray. In this particular way, devotees have prayed, and in this particular way, Sri Gajendra Maharaj begins his prayer today. So in this very difficult situation, so remember that he is not praying sitting in a forest. He's not praying sitting in ISKCON Baltimore in a temple in a peaceful environment. He's praying these prayers when his one leg is being bitten by a crocodile, and he knows that he's facing death any moment because of that. So with that, Sukdev Goswami continues. Thereafter, the king of the elephants, Gajendra, fixed his mind and his heart with perfect intelligence and chanted a mantra which he had learnt in his previous birth as Indradumna, and which he remembered by the grace of Krishna. So, I will not elaborate on this pastime because it's going to be described later of how this elephant king, Gajendra, was able to enunciate such beautiful prayers. And this was because of his past birth as Indradumna Maharaj. And all the piety that he had accumulated in his past birth, by the grace of Krishna, that piety was restored and he was given the remembrance to say these wonderful prayers. Now, when I was listening to this, preparing for this discussion, I heard a wonderful lecture by Brajvihari Prabhu from Radha Gopinath Temple. And he made a wonderful point when describing these prayers of Gajendra that, when we start our spiritual journey, when we start becoming a devotee, first, when we are in this material world, we were all engaged in some degree of sense gratification and until we came across Srila Prabhupada's books on medicine devotees who through the power of their purity helped us understand that actually sense gratification is not the goal of life. The goal of life is to achieve the supreme personality of Godhead, and in order to do that we have to give up sense gratification and we have to engage our senses in the service of the Lord. So we rise up from the stage of sense gratification to sense control, and then we become practicing bhaktas, practicing devotees, which I'm in that stage now. And then we start trying to control our senses, and then we struggle, and then we struggle, and then we struggle again, and we keep struggling. But we don't realize that actually, or that there may come a point where we realize that actually trying to control these senses on our own capacity, on our own strength, is nearly impossible. It's almost difficult. In one lecture on Dashera, Radha Swami Maharaj gave a wonderful analogy that this attempt to sense control is almost like trying to cut the heads of Ravan. That when Lord Ram begins the battle with Ravan, and in that battle he shoots an arrow to cut off one head of Ravan, immediately, boop, another head pops up. And then he shoots that head off, and then immediately, boop, another head pops up. And it's almost like that. And then Lord Ram, through this Leela, shows us that we should be addressing the heart of the problem. And finally, he releases the arrow to the heart, and that's how he's able to conquer Ravana, who's the embodiment of lust. So similarly, in this way, when we realize by chanting for a while, that although we have understood that we have to give up sense gratification, but we are still struggling, because it's so difficult to control our senses. Even though we try to engage them in Krishna's service, any small lapse in concentration or focus, our senses drag us away from Krishna. So then we should come to this realization, just like Gajendra Maharaj did. After struggling with this crocodile, for 1,000 years, the battle went on. He finally realized that it's actually not in my control, not in my power to be able to defeat him. And then he comes to a very important point that we should also come as we advance slowly and slowly in bhakti, is the point of Sharanagati, the point of surrender. In this path, when we are trying to control our senses, we should continue this effort. We should continue restricting our senses. We should continue engaging our senses in the service of Rishikesh. But at the same time, we should realize that the most potent way to do that is to take shelter of Krishna. And we take shelter of Krishna by sincerely, from the bottom of our heart, raising our hands up and chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And that is when, in that mood, is what Gajendra Maharaj is offering these prayers. The mood of surrender, not in the mood of I am the king of the jungle, not in the mood of hey Lord, I'm taking care of this problem. I just need you to be on the side. No, this is the mood of complete surrender. That Lord, these senses are very very difficult to control. I am doing my best, but I really really need your help. So in that particular mood, we should chant our prayers, including the Hare Krishna mantra that we do every day. Now, another important point that Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport to this verse is that we see that how, even in his previous life, whatever he had done, Lord Krishna, by his grace, he allows Gajendran to gain that remembrance back. So that's why Srila Prabhupada, he quotes a couple verses he quotes one verse from Bhagavad Gita, 6.43 to 44. Tatra tam buddhi samyogam. There's also a similar verse in 9.31. Kaunteya pratijanahi name bhakta pranashati. That his devotee, anybody who's done anything for the pleasure of Sri Lord Krishna, he will never perish. When the time will come for him to require any spiritual knowledge or benefit, Lord Krishna will always be there to stand by him and to support him. And that is why Srila Prabhupada emphasizes in the purport that we should all, in addition to our daily rounds that we do, our daily prayers in the form of chanting 16 rounds of Hare Krishna mantra, we should try to learn these wonderful prayers by the excellent devotees in Srimad Bhagavatam. And we should try to recite these prayers, because we may recite them for maybe a few months, and then we may forget them if we don't do it regularly. But if and when the time comes, the need arises, and we don't have the capacity to remember God, and our time of leaving the body comes, Krishna will give us that remembrance. And even in a state of external unconsciousness, if we are even in a comatose state, we will be able to remember and recite these prayers in our heart to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is why Srila Prabhupada emphasizes this. The other reason is, although these are not our prayers, and what these prayers are asking for may be something too high of an ambition for us to achieve, but by constantly reciting these particular prayers, we develop or imbibe the mood of those devotees who are offering these prayers. So that is why, in this particular mood and with this particular understanding, we should try and remember these wonderful prayers by Gajendra Maharaj. Then Gajendra Maharaj begins. So in this Bhagavad Subodhini, it's very wonderfully described or broken down the different elements of these prayers, or at least the first part of the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in the first four shlokas, or shloka number 2 to 5, uh, Gajendra Maharaj describes in glorifying the Lord, he describes the supreme power of the Lord. In the second one, he focuses on Lord being as the supreme originator. So it is said that because of him, this material body acts due to the presence of spirit, and he is therefore the root cause of everyone. He is worshipable for such exalted persons as Brahma and Shiva, and he has entered the heart of every living being. So God, we understand He makes everything spiritual. Whatever comes in contact with God, it becomes enlivened with spirit. It is only because of the presence of Paramatma and an aspect of Paramatma, which is the Jivatma, that the material body comes to life. So he is the one who gives this ability to act, the ability to the presence of life in anything that is there in this world. He's also the root cause of everyone. Srila Prabhupada quotes Ishvara Param Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. That he is the cause of everything that is there. Um, in the next part, Srila Prabhupada describes that so he actually Prabhupada gives two examples for understanding how God makes everything spiritual. So he gives an example that when we worship a deity, deities may be coming in different forms of different material elements like stone or wood or some metal. But as soon as we do a pran pratishtha or a pure devotee invites the Lord to take presence in that particular deity, then that deity just stops becoming an ordinary material element like a stone or wood, but it actually becomes a form of the spiritual form of Godhead. So, in that particular way, because of his presence, God can make anything spiritual and transcendental. The another example Srila Prabhupada gives in the purport is the example of a guru. That when a pure or sincere devotee is awarded the path of a guru or is accepted as a guru, the disciple should always look upon the guru as not having a material body or material elements, but having a spiritual body that is transcendental to the material elements. It is an offense to consider the guru to be just an ordinary material entity, but him in his person and in his body is transcendental to this material world. That understanding Srila Prabhupada offers to us. He also goes on to explain how Om, Omkar is Krishna, and how Om is the root word before most Vedic mantras. Even in here it is stated Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai. So in that particular way, the Lord is present in different parts in the mantras and scriptures. In text 3, goes on to describe the supreme energy form of the Lord. So, Srila Prabhupada quotes in Bhagavad Gita 9.4, Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina. That everything that is there in this world rests on me, just as the earthen pot rests on the earth. And this is a beautiful analogy that his Grace Gauramadarshan Prabhu expounds on in the Bhagavad Subodhini. He describes that, just as we see that there's an earthen pot, and the earthen pot is kept on the ground which is made of earth. The earthen pot is made out of a machine which itself is made out of earth, the pottery machine. And the one who's moving the pottery machine and giving shape to the earthen pot is the human being or a human whose body is also made up of the earth element, Bhumi, Rapi, and Vayu. So that earth element is present in so many different forms, but all of that is actually coming from the Supreme Personality of God. So he is the supreme platform on which everything rests. And he's also the ingredient by which everything is being produced. And that person who is created and is the only cause of this cosmic manifestation. So that's how we realize that this connection that we see with Supreme Personality of Godhead in all different stages of creation. He is the creator, he is the cause, he is the method, he is the material, and he is also part of the final product, just like the earth and the earthen pot example. In text 4, goes on to Gajendra Maharaj goes on to describe the supreme energetic form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, it is described that the Lord creates and destroys with his own energy. So, we see at the time of creation how he uses his own external energy to create this material world. And in the time of dissolution, everything that is there that goes and takes and resides into the Supreme Personality of God. And that is why one of Lord's name is called Narayan. The word Narayan means the one who is the ayana of the naras, the shelter of the living entities is Narayan. So at the end of the time of dissolution, the living entities they take shelter temporarily in the body of Lord Vishnu. Uh, so in this particular way, the Lord, with his own energies, he creates and destroys this material world. But he does not take part on it directly. He only acts as observer and witness, which Bhagavad Gita describes as Upadrishta and Anumanta. In text 5, goes on to describe the transcendental nature of the Lord. That despite creating all these wonderful manifestations in the universe, um, the Lord, He's above this darkness. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the example that's given is just as we see that sometimes the sun is covered or goes away from our eyes. When it is nighttime in our place, we don't see the sun and we get covered with darkness. But that does not mean that the sun is covered. It just means that our eyes are covered because of the positioning of the earth. Or sometimes a big cloud comes during a rainy day and it covers and makes the sky dark. So it does not mean it has this the cloud has covered the sun because the cloud is too small and insignificant to cover the entire sun. The cloud has only covered our vision that we are not able to see the sun. But and that is a fault in the Mayavadi theory. The Mayavadis often expound this theory that when the supreme energy comes into this material world, he's covered by a material covering, and that is why he cannot be the supreme truth cannot be a person. But the fault in that understanding is the supreme truth, the supreme personality of Godhead can never ever be covered by something so small and insignificant. But it is only our vision or our understanding that can be covered by this deficiency. In text 6, goes on to describe 6 and 7, the inconceivable nature of the Lord. Now, we understand that the Lord and his activities are sometimes very, very difficult to understand. And we've seen how in the Devta, how Lord Brahma themselves got fooled by the activities of the Lord and could not understand his true position. And Prabhupada also states that it is not easy to see the Lord. He quotes Janma Karma Chame Devyam Evam Yoveti Tattvataha, that his birth, his activities are transcendental. We always try to gauge everything we see with our material senses, material instruments, but he is not going to be understood by that particular means. And the question is, so then how do we understand the Lord? How do we conceive the Lord? How do we this conception that God is there and He's a supreme person? So the next question, the next shloka, Gajendra Maharaj in his prayers answers that it is only be by taking association of Mahajans, of sadhu, doing sadhu sangha, or and developing this quality of having a sambhav, pandita samadarshana, friendly to everyone, and by flawlessly practicing the vows of brahmacharya, vanaprastha and sannyas, can one be awarded the lotus feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what happens is when we take sadhu sangha, when we remove the enmity from our heart and we follow our vows strictly, we please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased, Krishna manifests himself in our heart and we are able to understand him better. In this particular way, Gajendra Maharaj continues his prayers in text 8 and 9. And in text 8 and 9, he focuses on the external appearance that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the supreme power, he has no material birth, has no material activities, but still he comes time and again in so many different forms. And we see so many categories of avatars that are there by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order to maintain and the manifest the regular responsibilities of this universe. He appears as Guna Avatar, as Brahma and Shiva. He comes as Leela Avatar. He comes as Yuga Avatar to establish the dharma of each yoga. He empowers different personalities and comes as Shaktavesh Avatar. So in this particular way, the Lord, through his energies, he constantly comes to help the living entity, the soul, in order to go back to God. But just because he comes to this world does not mean that he becomes a part of this world or becomes contaminated, like the Mayavadis explain. That he always remains free from material contamination. in text 10 goes on to describe that, for my respectful obeisance unto Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the witness in every heart and enlightens the individual soul and cannot be reached by exercise of the mind, words, or consciousness. I'd like to focus on this last point where it is stated that Shukdev Goswami or Gajendra Maharaj actually speaks that the Lord cannot be reached by exercise of the mind, words, or consciousness. Um, in his book, The Living Name, His Holiness Sachinandan Swami gives a wonderful example that comes in the right in the first chapter of how we can improve our chanting, and he talks about how we should align. We should sit in a proper posture, so we should align our body. How we should focus our mind by some breathing exercises and removing all sort of negative thoughts, and then how we should sincerely pray from our heart. So we should align our body, mind, and heart. But he makes the point, the same point Gajendra Maharaj is making over here, that even though we do all these things, we cannot expect that now my chanting is going to be 100% pure. Now Krishna is going to appear in front of me or going to manifest in as Sri Nam Prabhu in front of me. But with with this effort that we put in by controlling our body, mind, and praying from our heart, we become a receptacle where Krishna can manifest himself, Krishna can present his mercy. His Holiness Sachinandan Swami Maharaj states that don't be a passionate achiever while chanting, but try to be a grateful receiver. That in this particular mood, we should humbly pray with gratitude to the Lord and beg for his mercy. So it is only when the Lord is pleased with our endeavor, pleased with our mood of service, that the Lord will manifest himself. And just like Gajendra Maharaj says, not by exercise of our mind, words, or consciousness, but if he's pleased by our humility and our surrender. And an example of this is we see Mother Shabri. So sometimes we say, we've been chanting for 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years, but we don't feel that, the Lord is manifesting in our chanting. But we should realize that, when we should constantly practice this control of body, mind, and prayer from the heart, so that one day will come when the Lord is pleased with us and will manifest. So Mother Shabri also, when we hear her story, we see the tremendous faith she had in the process given by her Gurudev. Every day she used to clean the ashram. Every day she used to pick flowers. Every day she used to pick berries and just check, check, check and keep everything ready. And then the Lord did not come. And then the next day she would get up and she would do the same things again, check, 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 and then wait. So she kept on doing this for 1,000 years. And her determination and her faith was so powerful that it, forced Lord Ram to change his route only to come and give darshan to Mother Shakti. So in this particular way, when we do our sadhana properly, when we do our focus our attention properly, we become a receptacle that Lord becomes pleased with us and one day manifests in our truth, in our chanting as Nam Prabhu. In the last shloka for the day, Gajendra Maharaj goes on to state that he just mentioned, Lord cannot be realized by just exercise of the mind, but by pure devotees who act in the transcendental existence of bhakti yoga. So it is only and only by loving devotional service or bhakti yoga that the Lord can be understood or achieved. He is the bestower of uncontaminated happiness and the master of the transcendental world. Um, so in Bhagavad Gita, it also states, Bhaktya mam abhijanati. That's only by loving devotional service that I can be understood. Now, this is a wonderful purport that Srila Prabhupada has given. So I leave it to everybody to read this purport and benefit directly from Srila Prabhupada's instructions. And this being the last shloka of the day, I'll end the discussion over here. Thank you so much, devotees, for your attention. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavin ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.